Actually, let's start with, how would you define purpose?
How would I define purpose? Wow. That is, for some reason, feels like a big question right now. I feel like purpose to me, and through what I've learned with human design and the work I've done, is, when you are this little baby and you're born into this world and it's your first day on earth, you just start living life as naturally as comes to you. Like you start to do things and say things, well, not say things when you're first born, but as you are a small kid, you just act the way that you feel like you should. You desire the things that you desire for no particular reason, but you just do. And for me, purpose is when you don't get, redirected from that person that you kind of were born as, and you are just allowed to be that person and go in your own direction and do things in a way that just comes so naturally to you. And then you let your life evolve that way. To me, that is what I see as purpose. Like, I feel like purpose is just you being your own divine expression of life, consciousness, God, whatever you'd like to call it. That's what I think purpose is.
Well, hey you, and welcome back to another episode of The Western Hippie. I'm your host, Michaela. My co-host, Willard the Corgi, is asleep in the next room. And today we have such a special treat for you. We have a human design interview with Tarah Belle. I just got done editing this episode and I loved it so much. I learned so much from re-listening to it, which I should have known, and I wasn't expecting it. There was something different about doing the interview and then editing the interview that was just so magical, and I'm so excited for you to get into this episode. Before we do that, I wanted to go over a couple notes I have. So the first thing is, if you are brand new to human design, this episode is going to be confusing. This is not an introductory episode to human design. There is a ton of other podcasts out there. If you want to listen to an introductory episode, what I would recommend is going to myhumandesign.com, pulling up your chart. You need your birth date, your place of birth, and your time of birth to pull your chart. And then I would head over to Tarah's website and pull up her masterclasses. So whether you're a generator, a manifesting generator, a manifester, a reflector, or a projector, Tarah has masterclasses for all the energy types, and that is a perfect way to get an introduction to human design. The other thing that you can do is you can book a reading with her, and whether you're on day 1 of your journey, if you're listening to this and you're on day 10 or you're 3 to 6 months in on your journey, I cannot recommend a reading enough. And I talk about it at the end of the episode, but I had learned about human design for, I think, 3 to 6 months when I started looking to find a reader. And there was something special about, because when I was learning about it, it was like learning different pieces of the puzzle. So I had learned about the corners of the puzzle and the middle of the puzzle and the edge of the puzzle. And yet I hadn't found something to put the entire puzzle together. And that is what a reading did for me, is it put the entire puzzle together. And it was so magical. And the way Tarah, I want to say host her readings has just, she brings this energy and this life and this beauty. And as the 3-5, which is our profile in human design, we have 2 numbers for our profile. The Great Life Experimenter is what her profile is called. She brings this experimentation. Do you want to go this way? Do you want to go that way? And really customizes it to you, which I love, because I didn't want to have a reading that was like reading the ingredients off a cereal box. Like, I get it. I'm a manifesting generator. I'm here to respond. I'm a 5-1 profile. I want to learn more about these things. And also, how does this all come together? So those are the places I would start. And I also wanted to say, before we dive into the interview, I did not grow up into any of this stuff at all. If someone would have told me I would be hosting a human design person on my podcast, or even that I would have a podcast, I would have told you to shove your magical fairy dust where the sun don't shine, because I've done a lot of work to be a less judgmental and more magical human being. And we talk about mythical, magical, mechanical, no, No, definitely not that last one. I was conditioned, and we talk about conditioning in this episode, to be a logical person, be decisive, be a business person, have a business brain, think logically. And I love those things. I love that I learned how to do these things. And also, I have no logical circuitry in my human design chart. My gate 47 is my most important gate, and it's the need to have revelations, the need to talk to the spiritual realm, the need to have that connection. And I've really been on this journey to reclaim that. And so if you, like me, are like, this is magical fairy dust and you should shove it where the sun don't shine, there is something about human design that is more tangible, that is more digestible, in my opinion, versus astrology. I don't know why that is. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And through learning human design, I have tapped into astrology. I actually still have a softer spot for human design. However, having an astrology chart reading is on my bucket list, to-do list, something list. I don't know. I'm a Virgo, and I do know that about myself. And all of us do make lists. I was talking to my friend about it, and she was saying that I don't care what anybody says. All Virgos have something that's messy, and they all do make lists. That one may be cliche, but it's true. And I'm just like, I don't think that's true. I have a list for my list. Anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But human design brings multiple things together. The I Ching, astrology, the chakra system. There's so many things to it. And I want someone, whether it's me or somebody else, to write a book called like The Oxymoron of Being Human, because it's wild to me that it takes something like this to give us permission to be who we are. And yet there is a magic to it, that we have something like this to give us permission to be who we are, because we do live in a culture, in a society that really rewards people for being one way and not necessarily the other way. And it's like, you have to claim and work your rear off to be who you are. It's the wildest thing. And my goal so far throughout this like life experiment, and I'm 27, it's like, how can I be who I am? How can I do life differently? Because all I know is the way I was taught to do life is not working. This thing over here, whatever this is, I don't know. It's not working. And so even if something sounded crazy, even if something sounded wild, it's like, let's try this. And there was something about human design that I was like, yes, I don't know what this is. I have to learn about it. And it's changed and improved and shifted my life so much. I couldn't not bring it to you today. So without further ado, let's get into finding your purpose through human design with Tarah Belle. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you used human design to get back to that purpose.
Good question. I am what we call a manifesting generator in human design, which is the kind of person who is really, really non-linear. We are the type of people who have so many different passions, so many different interests. We just, we want to go from one place to the next and then back around again and then zigzagging, and life is so exciting. And for me, I have always, ever since I was a little kid, known that like life and this existence is so immense. I've always felt like such a spiritual being, and never quite been able to comprehend what all of this is and put it into words. And as I started to grow up in life, there are so many. Sorry.
We love the dogs. No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we love the dogs.
There are so many sort of roadblocks or things that come along your path that kind of try to redirect you from what I was saying your original purpose is, whether that be the things you're learning in school, how you're learning it, what you're being taught by your peers, your parents, your teachers. We're oftentimes told to not do things the way that we're doing them, to change that. That's crazy. That's too wild. That's not direct enough, whatever it is. And so we're constantly trying to shape ourselves into a certain thing that we've kind of been told that we need to do to be successful, to be worthy, to get anywhere in life. And that can start to be confusing for you as a human being. And so for me, as I was growing up and, into the teen life and early adulthood, I was making all these discoveries on my own. Like, I struggled learning in school. I think I'm a very smart person, but I struggled with learning because the teaching style and everything was just, it was not natural to me. And there were so many restrictions and things that I couldn't do. I'm the experimenter. I need to touch things. I need to try things. And I was told not to do that, just to read the book. That doesn't work for me. And so all of things like that start to add up. And when I kind of came to this place in life where I was like free to choose my own path and go in my own directions, even before I started learning about human design, I started to make choices according to my human design. I started to say, hey, wait a second, I don't want to actually go back to university and learn in this certain way. And I don't think I want to stay at this job. And I don't think I want to stay with this person or keep my things. And I started just like letting go of that and just following my dreams and letting myself just be my unique person I am, letting myself learn by actually doing things and by, not following the same path that all my friends were doing, step 1, 2, 3, because that didn't make sense to me. And so I kind of like left on this world adventure of discovering myself and living life in a way that came naturally to me. And along that way, I learned about human design. And the reason human design really stuck with me is because everything that it taught me and everything that it talked about was the exact things that I started figuring out for myself, the things that worked for me, the things that actually made me feel like a successful, worthy, like bountiful, prosperous human being. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where the journey with this all began. And it has just unfolded in ways that like just still blows my mind to this day.
Yeah, that permission to just be who you are. And I'm a manifesting generator too. And I feel like it is really easy to try and put us in a box because it's like, you can't do 10 things at once. I'm like, but if I don't do 10 things at once, I feel like you're cutting my arm off,
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And that is the in a way, that's part of the purpose of your life. If you are a manifesting generator, is to do things in a way that's never been done before, but also do things in a way that to the outside eye looks absolutely crazy and chaotic. And like, how could that ever work out? But we're the type who's here to put all of these different things together and create something new and create a life and a lifestyle that has never been done before. But it is like so perfectly aligned and amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you think, because we're getting ready to go into the new year, like Christmas is somehow a couple of days, do you think that's what differentiates human design from other, like, let's say, goal setting systems? Because it's proven that within the first month, 90% of people or 70% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions. But human design takes the person into consideration and not just the goal. Would you think that is the big differentiator between human design and other goal setting systems or whatever you want to call them?
Yeah, perhaps. I never thought about it that way, but I think what you're getting at is correct, because I think human design is essentially, it's giving you tools that you can just use in every moment a moment of your life that are applicable to every moment. And there's no end destination, kind of like a goal, but it's this journey that's always evolving, and every step of the way you become more aligned and things become easier. The more that you just allow yourself to follow your own energy and do things in the way that, you don't want to do them because it just seems too easy and too simple. Like, how could that be the right way? We need to push and force and hustle to make things happen. No, actually, the more that you let go and you just like do things in the way that comes so naturally to you, actually, the faster you become, and the more quickly you actually start to reach all of your goals and surpass them. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Isn't that wild, though? Like, that's what I love about human design. And maybe you can explain deconditioning a little bit, but it takes that into consideration of the conditioning process. Like, who you currently are at this moment is probably not who you actually are. So let's do this deconditioning process first. So if you wouldn't mind explaining what deconditioning is, that would be great.
Yes. So deconditioning is, and let's use what we talked about already in the fact that, if you imagine yourself as a little kid and you're just like starting life, you kind of just know what you want to do and how you want to do it and go about your life. And that is you in your purest form, but then you have all of these other conditioning factors, parents, teachers, peers, life, who are telling you, no, don't do it that way, do it this way. And so you're actively trying to force out all the things that are so natural to you and start to force something else. And so then what often happens is we become adults, and all of a sudden we are so conditioned to this person that we're not actually supposed to be, this person that's not actually our biggest, highest, most powerful self. And so when we learn about human design or other, self-discovery tools, we realize there's a lot of deconditioning to do. And that means, starting to learn what to let go of, or learn, what are the parts of me that aren't actually parts of me that I have started clinging onto. So for example, for someone like me who has like an open mind in human design, so part of the deconditioning for me is actually remembering that I'm here to be open-minded. I'm not someone who's here who's necessarily to have like very, very strict, stern opinions and points of views on the world, and be that kind of very opinionated person who's always certain. And that was a big conditioning for me growing up, was you need to have opinions, you need to be certain, you need to know the answer, you need to make decisions quickly. And that is something that I have been deconditioning from, and I noticed too, each of in the human design body graph, there's these 9 different shapes, which are the energy centers. And when we look at these, and when I'm doing a human design reading for someone, I look at what ones they have open or white. And that's where I start the deconditioning process for these people. And so if someone was like me and they had the open mind, the white center in the mind, I would look at the not self themes, we call it, for that center, which is where your conditioning comes from. So for the mind, it's where am I clinging on to ideas? Where am I pretending to be certain all the time? And so from my day to day, I am asking myself that, if I'm in a conversation or I'm trying to do work or whatever, and I find myself trying to force, I'm like, no, I'm so certain this is the thing, this is what I think. And then I'm like, whoa, this is my conditioning stepping in. And I can like start to let go of that and, use the different tools that I've learned from human design to help me get there. And that applies to so many different parts of us, our emotions, our momentum, our fears and anxieties, our desires. Like there's so much deconditioning on so many aspects.
Yeah, that was perfect. Thank you so much. So let's take the person who is lost and they feel stuck. They're in a career that they don't like, but they are so overwhelmed. They have no idea where to start. Where would you start with them to take them back to their purpose, back to their design?
There are a few steps. And so it depends if, this person is just working on their own, or if they seek out someone like me who's a human design reader. Because when I would look at someone's chart, first of all, I always look at energy type. I know that's the most basic part of human design. I know it gets talked about the most, but really it is the most important part. And if I find someone who is, for example, a projector, which is about 20 to 30% of people, I'm going to say, first, what I'm going to look at is how is this person using their energy? Because projectors, above all else, are the kind of people who have the tendency and the conditioning to overwork and burn themselves out. And so they push and push and push, and they feel like they always need to be achieving and using their energy. And that's not actually how the projector is supposed to work. So that's the number one thing I would look at for them and say, whoa, like, what is your output here? How can we get you back to this place of you're actually here to be a guide? You're not here to be doing all the heavy lifting. You're here to be more delegating and showing others where to go and showing us all, a better way to do things, looking at the bigger picture. So I look at that. And there's so much I can look at for each of the energy types, and then I also look at like their individual personal energy, like those centers I was telling you about. For example, if they're open emotionally, it's really important for me to see that, because it's important for me to understand if they are constantly feeling and taking on the emotions of others, or if they are someone who has like their own emotional frequency to deal with. Because, looking at all of those different parts of their awareness and their sort of like energetic presence in life can really help just that person even understand what's happening to them, like what they're experiencing. And then, you know, when we talk about purpose, there's this other thing in human design called incarnation cross, which is like your life theme. And it's not necessarily like just your purpose, but it's this theme and this flavor that you carry into everything you do. And when people are very lost and looking for purpose, I oftentimes look to this to help them see, like, this is a big part of your energy. This is a big part of your flavor of who you are. Like, bring this to every aspect of your life. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you want to be an athlete or a teacher or a doctor or whatever, you can still bring this theme and this purpose into everything you do. And I find that to be so eye-opening for people. And again, it's just a reminder to people. Usually, I've never once had someone like disagree with me or not relate to what I'm telling them. Like, usually people are almost like in tears and they're just like, oh my God, this is things I've always known about myself, but like just never been really willing to actually look at or accept, because I've always felt like I needed to be someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to give us an example, even your incarnation cross, and how you use that, or how you can start, like maybe even just testing the waters to use your, or would it be aligned with your incarnation cross, or use it, or how to, I guess I never thought of it.
Yeah, I never thought of that either. I guess it would be sort of like, yeah, just use it for insight, use it to like get some clues into who you are. So for me, it's called the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And really what it is, it's a very highly emotional energy. And for me, this life theme is, they use the example of like, sometimes the glass is half full and sometimes it's half empty. And my life is a great journey of like these huge emotional waves and experiences of like feeling the fullness of life so deeply. And ecstasy and joy, and then feeling this deep melancholy and feeling like all the feels and going through like these big waves and motions everywhere I go. And then becoming almost that phoenix that, like, you know, when something happens and when it just like the wave crashes, the phoenix is then reborn out of the ashes into something completely new. And for me, this has been sort of something I've always felt like, definitely this big, deep feeler. And I'm definitely realizing that I'm someone who's here to actually help like push people and provoke people into feeling things and seeing things differently. And, you know, feeling this true fullness of life and embracing that and knowing that nothing is permanent. Like, those are all themes. And those are things that I've, even looking back, always brought into every part of my life. And, yeah, it's just, I'm not sure where I was going to go with the rest of that. I lost my train of thought, but, that's sort of an example.
Yeah. You know, that's so ironic that you say that, because I was thinking about the reading we had together. And that was one of the things you did for me was, you know, I was saying I'll just like soak in my sad country music songs and I want to start feeling happier more. And you're like, well, it's actually because I have the 3060 channel or the 360 channel. I can't remember the route to the, and I think you were telling me like, yeah, I think you were telling me like, no, that's actually a big part of who you are, is to feel these like big, deep feelings. And yeah, so that's so cool, because that was an example of how you help people do that.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was thinking of too, doing this work with human design. And, you know, even on my Instagram, like, something that has been so amazing for me is being able to just embrace these like deep points and low points. And it's not a bad thing, by the way, when I'm in a mood or it's sad, it's not a bad thing. It's actually so beautiful, but it does hurt. And being able to express that and like giving myself permission, even, you know, on my social media, to be like, whoa, and just crying and be like, this is what I'm feeling. This is so beautiful. Life can be so hard. And like sharing that with people really teaches people and brings people into this, like, my life theme. Like, you know, you can see how it can just be brought to everything.
Yeah, no, it really can. And even, it's interesting because even learning about, I'm the incarnation cross of informing too, I believe. And even just like when someone will say something, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't tell them that. I'm like, wait, no, this is my job. Like, because for some reason I read a book 10 years ago and now this person 10 years later needs this information. But yeah, I feel like human design gives you the permit, like for me, the permission to speak that, the permission to say that, or the permission to feel it, when a lot of our conditioning is like, no, don't feel that. Don't say that, you know, keep to yourself. And then, but no, because we're actually supposed to be all of these things.
Yeah, because if you imagine, and like this is something I know from all the people I've worked with, so I see this, is like each of us have such a unique design. We all have such unique little gifts, I like to call them, and, you know, qualities and things to us, just like me being the super emotional person, that come so naturally to us, that are us. And this is who we are supposed to be, because each one of us is a different piece of the puzzle of humankind, and we're all qualified and, you know, containing everything that we need to have and to be to fulfill our purpose, whether that's for, you know, yourself or for you know, other people, teaching other people. Who knows? Like, everybody has a unique purpose, and that's what they're supposed to be here. So that's what I love about human design, is like, I always say this, like reminding people who they are through learning about this. That's really what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So if we go back to purpose, I don't know much about this, but I think it's either the incarnation cross or the profile. I can't remember. Isn't there a way to see if your purpose involves other people, if it's a fixed purpose? There's a couple things with that, but I'm not sure. Would you mind going into that?
Yeah, I was going to say this has to do with profile. So profile in human design is like one of the big three things, and it's kind of like your personality. And what it is, you'll see two numbers. Like I'm the 3/5, and there's 12 different profiles. So you'll be one of those. And what we're talking about here is almost like your karma. And so what they say is that, you know, if the first number is lower than the second number, like mine, the 3/5, or for example, if you're a 1/3, or I don't know, like a 2/4, you have a personal karma, meaning what you came here to do in this life and the purpose you came to fulfill, the karma you came to fulfill is like a personal, selfish one. You came here to learn your own lessons. You came here to have some sort of personal, you know, bigger thing happen. Whereas if you have a transpersonal karma, so your first number is bigger than your second number, like for example, a 6/2 or a 5/1, you're here to have a transpersonal karma. You came here to fulfill a karma which has to affect other people, or maybe teach other people something, or your purpose has to do with sort of like other people, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think you said there's one profile, which is the 4/1, which is the only person who has like a fixed karma, and it's neutral. It's not like transpersonal. It's not personal. It's just like someone who came here with like one certain thing to fulfill, one goal, and it's like a train on a track and you can't really get it off, and it's just going for it. Some people even say that these people are the ones who are like, no karma, like the soul on vacation. They kind of just came here to not have to figure out this and that and that. They're just on their track. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is, because Gentry, who you had a reading with, who's my little sister, is a 4/1. So it's really cool to watch her and then know a little bit about her design and just see how, I think that's helped me a lot too, is looking up celebrities charts or my friends charts and seeing like how they're, because sometimes for me it's easier to see how other people are doing it for me to like align like with myself. So that's, yeah. So when you were talking about that, I'm like, oh, Gentry.
Yeah. And actually, one of my favorite parts about human design, and one of the reasons that it's changed my life completely, is understanding other people. Because when you truly understand your own design and other people's designs, you can never judge someone. You can never, I feel now like I can never be annoyed with anyone, even in public, you know, like when those things that used to bug you and you're like, why does someone do something like that? That's so dumb, or like, that's just not efficient, or why are they like that? Now I actually see the purpose behind that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that person is supposed to be like that. You know, that person isn't nosy. That person's just curious because they need the information. And so there's like a perspective change on absolutely everything. And it's so much easier to accept people and accept everyone for who they are, that truly, I don't think there's like, I can think of a single example or someone where I'm like, you just drive me crazy by doing that, anymore. Cause I'm just like, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, me too. And even looking at, that's helped me a lot too. Cause I'm like, even for myself, I have an open head in ajna as well. And I had a ton of conditioning about be decisive, be opinionated. And don't get me wrong I've noticed actually, because I have a defined spleen, on things that are instinctual, I'm very opinionated, but on like ideas and other thoughts, I'm like, no, I can see both sides, so yeah. I have, my ways of doing things, but I can see how this person came to that. And that was super helpful for me, giving myself permission to not think about certain things, because there were problems. And I believe you brought this up in our session, was I would try and solve these problems. And now I just give myself permission, like, Michaela, that's not yours to think about. That's not yours to solve. Like, let it go. And it's like, my brain is like, finally,
Yeah. Right. It's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to the gates, so I think I heard this somewhere, that the first gate of your incarnation cross is your most important gift to nurture. Is that correct?
In a way, yes. So the first gate in your incarnation cross is also going to be what we call in your personality side, because there's two sides of the human design chart. There's the conscious personality side and the unconscious side. Anyways, so when you're looking at your human design chart, on the top right-hand side, the very top number that you see, which will be in your sun, that is like the first number of your incarnation cross, and that is your conscious sun. So the day you were born, the moment you were born, that is telling you which gate the sun was in. And the sun emits, 70% of the energy that we receive from like the cosmos, the stars, everything. The sun is our biggest energy giver. And so that's why it's the most potent and important, is because that's what's imprinting us the most. And so when I talked about incarnation cross, and I talked about, for me, that I'm feeling the fullness of life, the big feeler, super emotional, it's because my gate, which is, in my conscious sun, the first gate in my incarnation cross is gate 55, which is the gate of spirit abundance. And it lives in the emotional center. It goes through these emotional waves. It's the big, deep feeler of life. It's the energy that can like look at a tree and literally just start crying and be like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Or look at like a garbage can sometimes, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just perfect. It's like that kind of energy. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there a way that people can nurture that gift, or is that just something it's natural and you're going to experience it no matter what?
Well, both of what you just said are true. It's natural and you experience it no matter what. However, something that I always like to cover with people is to talk about these things and first say, do you recognize this in yourself? And then sometimes they'll say, yeah, but I'm trying to not do that because, probably at some point in life, they were told that that is wrong or that is weak or that is whatever. And so they try and avoid it. Even for people like me who have, this gate 55, they might feel like, oh, I'm too emotional. There's something wrong with me. Or, oh, I need to when I'm in a bad mood, pick myself up immediately because I'm not allowed to be that kind of person. And so yes, it comes naturally to you, but sometimes, we need some deconditioning or we need some awareness there to be like, no, if someone has gate 17, it's like, you're supposed to be very opinionated. You have the gate of opinions as your main thing. Like, you're allowed to be opinionated. You're allowed to have opinions. And so it's a balance, and it's different for each person, whether they accept and love that about themselves or whether they need to sort of, get to know that part of themselves again and really start to get intimate with it.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I have this thing in my life that I call the wash, rinse, repeat cycle. And my family's owned a dry cleaners for like almost 100 years. So it's just kind of like an ironic joke I play with myself. But I do feel like we have a tendency to get stuck in that cycle, the wash, rinse, repeat. And it's just this monotonous, we're going, not monogamous, monotonous. We're just going and going, and we don't realize how far we've strayed off the path. is the non-self theme a quicker way for us to recognize, hey, we're going in the wrong direction, so we don't get stuck in this cycle for 10, 15 years, let's say?
Yes, that is one of the biggest like tangible tools in human design, like the not self theme, to help you understand from moment to moment, day to day, whether you are in alignment or not. And so each of the different energy types, all 5, have like a different signature theme, which is, when you're in alignment and doing things correctly, you'll feel, but also not self theme. And so for us as manifesting generators, and for generators as well, the not self theme is frustration. And so, and you see this in other people too. This shows up like when you make a decision that's unaligned, and especially for us as like generators, if we make a decision and we, say yes, for example, to something that we really don't want to do, we're pretty quickly going to start to feel frustrated, like pretty quickly. Like it happens every time. And sometimes, this just feels normal. This just feels like life. You don't really recognize it. But when you start to be aware of this, you really start to see how connected this is to your, like, yourself and your decision making. And so, if someone is so far down many, many years, it can take, I think, a lot of other work too for them to decondition from beliefs, do belief shifting and like actually take a good look at their life and start to like chip away at the things, at the small things. I like to say, because I think that's more sustainable. But yeah, we can absolutely, look at these themes to help point us towards, like, it's life trying to point you towards the different things that it's trying to tell you, and I also like to say this has so much to do with, in life is supposed to be easy. And when you're in alignment, things flow, things feel easy. You don't have to push that. And it doesn't mean that you don't work hard or you're just sitting on your couch or anything. That's not what I mean. But I mean that like life will always put a roadblock in front of you when you're going the wrong way or pursuing something you're not supposed to pursue. And so that'll start out with something small, like maybe your appointment got canceled or, the weather turned and little things like that. And then when people don't listen to that, life starts to send you even more things. Yeah, you're frustrated, but now also you're getting sick. And now also you broke your leg. Sometimes that happens to people when they're really not listening and they're just going to go anyways. I oftentimes see people where, they broke a leg or their collarbone or they got so sick they had to go to the hospital and life literally made them stop physically and was like, stop. And usually it's when people get like physically sick that I find is like the almost like hitting rock bottom where they're like, oh, yeah.
Isn't that crazy? No, that happened to me with CrossFit. Like I should have stopped CrossFit a year before and it took a back injury. And to this day, if that same back pain comes up, if I pause and I ask, what are you trying to tell me that I'm ignoring? It goes away like that. And it is the wildest. I really geek out about this stuff. So I don't know if you've read Soul Speak or You Can Heal Your Life, but in the back of the books, it has different ailments basically, and then what emotion they're usually connected to. And I'm so glad you brought that up because it is so like our bodies and the universe or God, whatever you speaks to someone, has so many ways of sending us messages, but we don't know how to listen, I don't think.
Yeah. You're so right. I love that you have recognized that because you're right. Our body is always telling us, and our emotions and everything.
Yeah. And I do really feel like human design has helped me listen to those messages because for me, it was the first time I didn't get frustrated with myself for like, I was getting frustrated with myself for being multi-passionate. And then I read about human design. I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be that way. Or I'm supposed to, everyone gives me crap because I talk too much, but I have a defined throat and my job is to inform people, And so having these, I'm like, oh, the universe has been trying to tell me to inform people, but I haven't been listening, but it's actually written in my chart. And I think that is just this permission to be who you are, I think is so powerful in human design. And thank you for coming today because that's what I'm like, I want people. It's so weird. Do you find it odd that it takes us something like this to have permission to be who we are?
Yeah, I do. I think that's so funny. Sometimes I think about that. I'm like, what? But yeah, I guess it takes what it takes, and there's a reason for it, right? Like we are all living in this society together and evolving, and if you look at it, there's always reasons for, why we act the way we do and why we put importance onto certain things, and it all makes sense. But it is our job now, especially at this point in time, to really look at these things and really start to do the work. Like, this is the time to do that, you know because we are evolving. That's the whole purpose behind all of this. And something that always comes back to me is like, oh, we're always evolving, and our job is to always make it better and make ourselves better and make improvements. So this definitely helps with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wasn't expecting to go here, but it keeps popping into my head. So I'm just going to trust that it's meant to come out. But I just love your stories. So if people have not followed you, they need to go follow you because they're so fun. But can we talk about abundance in human design? Because I think there's a lot of conditioning. I think if you've grown up in the West, at least you have like Judeo-Christian values are just embedded in our culture. And one way I think that shows up sometimes, and I'm not, negating that at all. I think it's just I think it just is I think we feel guilty for trying to make money because, if you're spiritual or there's like this conditioning, and even just you putting, I think would you put citrine under your pillow, and you were talking about that. So can you just talk about the different ways you've used human design to tap into abundance or prosperity or however you want to call that?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, the funny thing is too, like, I think everybody is here to like be successful. I think everybody is here to have all of their dreams and wishes come true and follow that. And I think we all have different pathways to get there, and it looks different for everyone. But something else that I find interesting is when I look at someone's human design chart, there are certain gates or channels or things that point towards like specifically money. Like, this person is supposed to be materially abundant and successful and actually have money. Whereas for some people, it's more like they receive money and material abundance through like their community or like the things that they create, for example. And that's not to say, that only one person can make money or not, but there are certain gates and stuff that I look to, like gate 14, the gate of prosperity, which I have. And this is something I've always felt about myself is, I always feel like I'm going to be taken care of. And I've never had to worry too much to be like, oh my God, how am I going to make things work? Even when I am living paycheck to paycheck and, quitting my day job to start this business, like, I don't know where the money's going to come from. There were times when the money didn't come, but I still trusted and felt like it would. And I knew that. And there are different ways to like learn to trust yourself and follow those paths. But, it's funny that you said the citrine, because I have this citrine rock that I got last year in Mexico, and it's like beautiful. It's this crystal, and I just love it. And it represents, I think, like money and abundance and all those things. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I feel like, I was putting amethyst under my pillow like last month when I was feeling really anxious and sad because I felt like it was just going to give me good dreams and support me. And it did. Yeah. And so then I was like, this one night, I just threw the citrine under my pillow. I was like, I want to make more money tomorrow. And I woke up to a whole bunch of orders and a whole bunch of, readings booked. And it was just blew my mind because that had never happened before. But it's this simple law of the universe that you do attract, right? Like, so you attract, your thoughts do control your reality, but also like, that's why I also talk about the practice of scripting, which is, actually writing out your desires in present tense in like a journaling format. And oftentimes I've done that to, receive the things that I wanted, or, choose my future or choose my day, whatever I want to happen. I'll write it down as if it already happened, and it always happens. And so I don't know, you might have to redirect me with what your question was because I'm getting lost, but I love that stuff.
No, I think that was a beautiful example. And if you just want to go, like, where could somebody start to find their way of being more prosperous or making money, or if they wanted to start a business, something along that direction that gives somebody a tangible first step?
Yeah. Well, your channels are such a good thing to look at in your human design chart. And a channel is formed when two gates connect. So this is it'll be like a full line. If you look at your human design chart and you see all the little energy centers, the different shapes, they will only be colored in if there's a channel connecting two energy centers. And so that means that those two gates can talk to each other and connect, and they create this full energy. So for example, you can see what kind of person what kind of things you came here to harness. Like if you have gate 21 in the heart center connecting to gate 45 in the throat center, this is actually the channel of money. And these people are the ones who are literally here to be materially successful, have control over resources. They know how to make money. They are very aware of like handling and all that kind of stuff. And they're here to like chase after those things. And that's absolutely correct for them. But some people are designed so much differently. Like I said, there's the channel of community, and those people, they're going to find success through really fostering and creating a community of people where everyone has a role and there's give and take. That's where they're going to receive so much from that. And so when you look at your channels, these are essentially your greatest gifts, and they really point you towards how you can go about getting the things you want in life, and how you can go about, leveraging your own essence to find success.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Was perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Have you had to do any deconditioning around money?
This is funny. Out of like all the people I know, not as much as most people. And I think too, partly because maybe my gate 14, and also maybe because of, some of the other stuff that I have, but I have had to, I still have to do work around money, especially being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, where I'm fully responsible for making money. And I've never had that before. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, I have to, make money. And I think there is a lot of conditioning around it because, like you said, there can be such a negative association to people who want to make money and have money and chase after money. And something I've learned from human design is, oftentimes those people who are like that are designed to be like that. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. But also sometimes there are people who are chasing after those things, but it's not actually natural for them. For example, a lot of people who have an open heart center, which is like where the willpower comes from. In this society where we're always, pressured and told to be better, do better, have more, make more money, be more successful. These people who have an open heart center, for example, they feel that pressure extra. And so they overcompensate by working harder, trying to overachieve, trying to make more money, and they burn themselves out completely because they're not designed to be those kind of people who are pushing and forcing those things. And oftentimes what happens is, especially if someone, for example, is like working in corporate finance or like in those places where I've worked before. So I've seen this. There's this pressure.
I cannot imagine you working in corporate finance. Oh no.
I did. And it was hilarious. I was just that little wild person who was like, does anyone else see how messed up this is? But whatever, I'm along for the ride.
Right.
But there's so many people there, who are, especially like maybe they have families, whatever. There's this status thing and there's this pressure to like have money and make money. But you can see them getting ill because they're not designed to be those people. Maybe they're actually the artist and they're not, they're here to find that abundance through other ways. And so that's, again, sometimes where human design can help you, because if you're trying to force that thing, but deep down, you don't want it. And then someone gives you the permission to say, no, that's not how you're going to find success. You'll be way more successful if you do something in this other way. Then how amazing is that, right?
Yeah. Something that blew my mind when we had our reading together, and you just barely rushed. We were at the end of our session and you just barely said it. And then when I went back and listened, I was like, wait, what? You told me I had no logical circuitry. And I was like, but I've always prided myself on being a logical person. What are you But it blew my mind because it was this moment of permission of like, no, I'm actually here to be creative. I'm not here to, like I've been doing the books for my dad's rental house business for years. And I finally got to a place where that gave me permission to be like, okay, we're going to wrap this year up and we're going to be done, because I sit down to do it and that frustration just creeps in. And by the time I'm done, now, if I find a way to do it creatively, that helps. But yeah, it's just wild how I've been in a logical position almost my whole life. And it took you saying you literally have no logical circuitry for me to, isn't that wild?
Yeah. And I don't even remember saying that. That's funny.
Yeah, it is, because my incarnation cross, the first number is 47, which is like the need to have revelations. And I remember being that, like when I was a kid, I would go outside and I'd sit down and I would talk to my imaginary friends. Well, I was talking to like the spiritual realm, and they finally told me, like, you can't do that. It's weird. Like, you're allowed to have imaginary friends when you're that young. But I'm like, they're not imaginary. You just can't see them. And it took getting back to human design, you telling me I had no logical circuitry, to start being more comfortable with tapping back into that side of myself, because I was frustrated all the time, because being disconnected from that was like being disconnected from a part of myself. And I just had no idea until really, I kind of was starting to get ideas of it, but it really did take my reading with you and other things I've been doing, and like, no, this is me.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Oh my God. That's why I love doing readings and things. Like, even just hearing you talk about it, I'm like, my generator excitement is like, oh my God, I just want to, come on, people book more readings. I want to talk to you. It's so fun. Yes. It's amazing to be able to, this is why we do this. This is why I do this work,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I got, we were like 3/4 through our reading, and I mentioned her earlier, but Gentry, who's basically my younger sister, I was like, she's 17. She just turned 17 in October. And I was like, you have to do this, because could you imagine that's my hope with human design. And even being here today is like, the younger you can get this stuff in your hands, like, can you just imagine how much more powerful it's going to be? Hopefully less conditioning to do in the process too.
Yeah. And actually, Ra Uru-Hu, who is the man who kind of founded human design, he actually said, the reason I'm doing this and dedicating my life to this isn't for us now. It's for the future generations. It's for the kids who are not yet born, because imagine being raised according to who you really are. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, you are actually supported in being that little person who knew exactly what they needed to do and how and what their interests were. And they were never told to be something different or do something in a different way. Imagine if you were that person, you would absolutely thrive and blossom in this world. No doubt you would find joy. You would find success. You would just be so fulfilled. And so, that's something that even I've never yet had that desire to be I want kids of my own. But I kind of want them just so I can raise them according to their human design and just see how that works,
Yeah. I know, you being the experimenter, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like you'd have I feel like your kids would have so much fun with you, though.
Poor kids are just being my experiment. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we're doing, right? I mean, they're everyone's experiment, whether people admit it or not. That's another story. True. But yeah, what do you think is a piece of human design that gets overlooked?
Funny, but I think that the most basic part of human design, the strategy and authority and energy type, is what gets overlooked the most, even with me, who's been practicing this for 5 years, because it's the first thing you learn about. It's the most important thing. It's the biggest tool. But then when people start learning about human design and they start going down the rabbit hole, they're like, ooh, but the gates and the channels and the circuitry and this and that, which I also am obsessed with, and then the digestion and motivation and wanting to learn about what's under the arrows. There's so much stuff there. We always just forget about the most important thing, which is following your strategy and authority, which is literally, how do you use your energy from moment to moment? And Ra Uru, like who I just mentioned, who started human design, said that if you do nothing else other than just master your strategy and authority and your energy type, and you never even look at what the gates are, you never look at anything else, that's where the biggest difference is going to be made in your life. That is the most important thing. That's going to change everything for you. And so, yeah, even with myself, from moment to moment, I can oftentimes forget about responding and forget about, waiting out my emotional wave a little bit and stuff because I'm caught up in the moment of life. But these tools are like so valuable, so valuable.
Yeah. The majority of us are emotional in our authority, correct?
Half of us, 50%
Half
of people.
Of us. Wow.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that emotional wave a little bit and how to ride the wave, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm the queen of the emotional, so you're talking to the right person. So in human design, when we're talking again about these 9 energy centers, one of them, called the solar plexus, is what governs our emotions. And just to give like a little bit of like a human design history lesson here, we have been evolving as human species from our primary awareness center was, our instincts, survival-based instincts, fear. Do I need to run or not? That was our primal awareness. I don't know how long ago. Then when the neocortex started to develop, this is when we got this mind or this ajna center in our human design chart, which is quite literally our mind. And that became and still is now our primary awareness center. And so we think with our mind and we conceptualize and we're kind of logical and we think things through, we overthink things. But that's currently where our primal consciousness is. However, where we are moving to in the future, and actually we were almost there, is to a place of where human beings, our primary awareness center is our emotions. And so according to human design, in 2027, actually, the first human beings are going to be born who can literally share emotional consciousness with each other. And so as we will evolve over the next, hundreds or more, whatever years, human beings are going to start to communicate and feel each other more so through emotions and share that feeling. And so what's happening right now as this evolution process is taking place is that inside each and every one of us, we have these emotions and emotional frequency that is mutating. So it's changing, it's tweaking, it's evolving. And 50% of us have this center defined. And those of us who have this center defined have what's called an emotional wave. And the emotional wave is this emotional frequency that we have no control over, that is constantly moving in a wave-like form throughout us every single day from the day we're born until the day we die. And how this shows up is you might wake up one morning and feel completely ecstatic and stoked and just awesome for no particular reason, but you just feel it and it just feels good. And everything feels like, yes, I want to do everything. And then, there'll be some days when you wake up and you feel the exact opposite. You just feel absolutely gloomy, depressed, melancholy, and for no particular reason. And of course, I have to say, like, all of us can feel emotions for reasons, right? Like if, someone passes away and we feel sad, that's completely normal. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when there's nothing in the outer world happening. It's just for no reason. And that's why we say us emotional people, we're very moody, because it's like from one moment to the next, you never know what you're going to get. And I know that for myself. It's like all of a sudden I'm like this, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, like just so bummed. And I'm like, what? And so for those of us who have an emotional wave, this is our authority, our decision-making process. This just means that we can never have complete clarity, or we never should make a decision in the moment. We should never feel pressured to make a decision quickly. This is what's really important, because regardless of where we're at in our wave, we're going to be feeling some kind of emotions that are going to probably affect whatever decision it is we're making. So it's just very helpful for us who have these emotional waves to give ourselves time and to buy ourselves time, when we are making decisions. It's not like a law. It's not like a rule of life. You have to do it, but it's helpful. It's very helpful. And the more you practice this and start to experiment with this, you will see that, this is helpful for you, because if you're in the high of an emotional wave and someone invites you to go on this thing on the weekend, you're definitely going to be like, yes, I want to so bad. But then by the time the weekend rolls around, you might actually be like, why did I say yes to that thing? I really don't want to do that thing. That's like a very typical emotional person, life example. So yeah, it's just most important things. If you're emotional is to know there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with all of these moods that you have and feeling kind of like a crazy person and, all that stuff. And then 2, like nothing is permanent. You accept whatever you get. And, when you're in those lows, use them for creativity, use them to be alone, use them to reflect to whatever you feel like doing, and recognize that nothing is permanent. The highs will come and that's going to happen forever. So those are the really important things, I think, when we're talking about emotionals.
It's so funny because my cousin, he's 15. Yeah, he's 15. And we always called him Gary from SpongeBob because he's always, I don't know if you've seen SpongeBob, but Gary's like even keeled no matter what. He's just always the same. Like the greatest thing could happen. Okay. The worst thing could happen. Okay. And if he gets boardwalk on Monopoly, like that's the only time he gets really excited. And I pulled his human design chart and he's non-emotional. And it was such a cool parallel of like, oh yeah, I'm like riding the wave all day. And here's Caden just.
Sometimes I'm envious. They're just like calm, cool, collected. Like that's their natural state. And I'm like, oh, that must be nice sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, I do. Human design has helped me learn to love it, but I definitely sometimes I'm like, can I just have an even keel day,
Yeah. But the funny thing to recognize about the non-emotionals, naturally they're calm, cool, and collected. But if you, who's an emotional, are feeling something intensely, feeling really emotional, and you come into their presence, they're going to feel that and they're going to amplify it in the moment. And so sometimes they feel like the crazy person because they're like, rah. And like, if you're like a 2 out of 10 kind of mad, just a bit frustrated, and you come into a room and start talking to them, they're going to start feeling like 5 out of 10 mad. And you're going to be like, what's wrong with you? What happened? And they're like, I don't really know. And it's just like that kind of situation.
So is that because so if they're non-emotional, then they would have an open solar plexus, so then they can take on an emotional's energy? Is that?
Yeah. So what happens is anything that you have open or white in your human design chart, whether that's, your emotions, for example, here, the places where you are white is where you are sensitive and pick up on and magnify from the world around you. So if you, like me and you, we have an open head and mind center, that means that we pick up on those places from the people around us. So we pick up on opinions and thoughts and mental pressure and inspiration and all the themes of there we pick up on from other people. So, it's fascinating to know this kind of stuff because you can use it to your advantage. Like for you and I, if we're ever stuck or we need a perspective change or we need inspiration, we know that just sitting on our couch alone isn't really going to help. We need to go out and be surrounded by other people because we're going to absorb all of their mental stuff. And so we go to a cafe or we go for a walk or we go to the library and we come back feeling inspired and full of ideas, also full of questions sometimes. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. It's so helpful for me to even just go outside and absorb things even from nature or some kind of, but yeah, if I'm just sitting alone, I just spin. Like it feels like I'm a dog chasing its tail kind of. It's just not helpful. But what do you think is the most misunderstood center in human design?
I would say that the hardest center to grasp, the most like elusive center would be the G center, which is that diamond in the center of your chart. It's like kind of a diamond right in the very middle. And even amongst people like me who know human design well, I think this is a very hard center to understand because it's the identity center and it's all about love and direction. And it's not so simple as in like your emotions or the way you think or your desires. It's a very different, like how do you pinpoint identity and direction, right? It's very, it's hard to put into sort of logical words, even for me. But as somebody who has it open, I understand how it feels. And it's very misunderstood because for someone like me, for example, who has this open, I become a different person depending on who I'm with. I show up as someone different depending on who I'm with because I feel that person's soul, I feel that person's energy, and I shapeshift to kind of become like that. So, sometimes you're very misunderstood because people see you as one thing, but then when they see you over there with those people, you look completely different. And sometimes people can even be like, are you just faking it? Like, who are you? But it's because you really do just become whoever. You're like a chameleon in a way. It's almost like a very big reflector energy.
Yes. That helped me a lot because I have a completely open G center too. I don't have any gates to find in there. And then also being a 5-1, if I remember correctly, people perceive the 5-1, like everyone has their own perception of the 5-1. And then on top of the open G center, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense because someone's like, wait, I thought, cause I do shape shift with religion or spirituality, for example. They're like, wait, I thought you were a Christian. I'm like, well, I love certain parts of it. And sometimes I'll go to a church and I feel very Christian, but then I'll go sit with my crystals outside. Like, I don't know. Don't put me in a box. And it is interesting because it does feel hypocritical at times because I can see, and I'm sure you can too, how you are different with these other people. And it does leave that, well, who am I question kind of up in the air sometimes.
Yeah, and that's part of the conditioning and the not self themes of this center being open is where am I chasing love, direction, and identity? Am I trying to cling on to being a certain someone? Am I trying to cling on to an identity and say, this is me, this is me? Am I chasing after love, like obsessively? Am I trying to so obsessively like chase after my direction in life? Like, no, this is where I'm going. This is my 5-year, 10-year plan. Those are all the not self themes of the center, because if you're like us and you have it open, you're not actually here to know necessarily who you are. You're not actually here to know where you're going. You're here to let life show that to you and go along for the ride.
Yeah. So as we go into the new year, if someone wants to set like an intention or a goal, what is one thing that you suggest that they start with, or, learn about human design if they are new? Either way you want to go, it's good with me.
Wow. That's so, what's coming to me right now is like, where are the places, this is just a reflection for you, something to think about, because if you want to actually like own your life and be your highest, most powerful self and be authentically you kind of need to be honest and looking at yourself and say like, where am I actually being me and true to myself versus where have I been trying to force something that isn't me? And do, whatever you can to look at yourself and be honest and look at all the different aspects of your life and your day and the way you act and the things that you think and believe, and just say, does this feel good to me, for one? 2, does this feel like me, or does this come from somewhere else? Do I feel like I have to do this? And yeah, like if human design calls to you, start learning about it. Look at your chart, look at what energy type you are, and start with that and start practicing with the tools. Sometimes it can be helpful to look, depending on who you are, like to look to other people for reflections of you, because some of us can't see ourselves as easily. Try and start exploring, with ways that you can honestly just discover who you are, and maybe just try and lean into more the things that actually come easily to you instead of trying to push and force.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts, things you want to say?
I mean, I could talk about human design forever and ever and ever. And I absolutely love this conversation. If anyone ever wants to talk more, like I'm sure they can come to you. You can also come to me on Instagram or wherever and chat. Like I love to do that. I love to do lives. I love to do podcasts. and just
Yeah.
engage with people and talk about this, because this is so important to me. And I just find it to be such a life-changing tool for everyone. And like, if not even just for yourself, for understanding and accepting others, like we talked about, because you start to learn that you really can't judge someone or, ask someone to be different, because we're all meant to be so unique and different, and we all actually fit together so well. So I just welcome to human design rabbit hole, sort of.
Yeah. I think your mini readings are a great place to start too, because you get some great, I'd been studying human design long enough, like I was ready to have that full reading with you. But I think the mini readings might be a great place for people to start too, if they're like, okay, I want to dip my toe in, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to like dive into the pool yet.
Yeah, totally. It's like a very low commitment sort of thing. So absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I will say for me, and this might be my learning style, I'm not really sure, but for me, I felt like I could only learn so much about living my design with reading different blogs and listening to different podcasts. I can't recommend a reading enough, because there was something about it being my chart and then you telling me how to align more with my centers, or I don't know, just listening to, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and it just wasn't, I just can't recommend a reading enough, because it was just too generic of like, well, you might have this. And, since all of us are so different, I think a reading is such a powerful place to start, even if, you've just pulled your chart up on day one and have no idea I remember, do you remember the first time you pulled up a human design chart? Because
it's overwhelming. It makes you just be like, actually, no thanks. I'm going to just cut this out. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for saying that. And you're right, because like when I do a reading for someone, or when anyone does a reading for you, there are so many layers to a chart that I can be like, yes, you're a projector, but you're also supposed to be, and then there's like all these other things I can tie into it, where it's like so uniquely tailored to you. It could never be the same for someone else. So it is super helpful. It's like the fast track way to learning about your design is getting a reading.
Yeah. And I really thank you, by the way, because I really appreciated my reading with you, because I'm sure you probably know, as a 5/1, at one time I had 10 tabs open with 10 different readers. And it was like, I don't just want a generic reading of, like you're reading the ingredients off a cereal box kind of a thing. And you totally were just like, this is where you want to go. Let's go. And like I said, you send the recording out afterwards. And so I re-listened to part of it yesterday to prepare for this interview. And I picked up so many things, and I've listened. So that was probably my 4th time, I think. And it was like, it was so perfect and I pick up different stuff every time. And so, I can't recommend it enough, obviously, but
that makes me so happy.
Yeah. So I will double check to see. I think we got it.
We talked about so much. This is going to be one of those podcasts that people can listen to like 5 times over and hear something new, kind of like you just said with your recording. So, thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you.
I do too. Thank you for coming. Yeah, this was so fun. I'm glad it worked out. And I'm really excited to, do a second reading with you and learn more. And thank you. So I think it's fun to have another, we have so many similarities in our chart. And so for me, like you being ahead of me and living your design, it's really helpful for me to have someone else that's an open G center. Or I was laughing at your Instagram stories the other day, because I'm like, that would be me. I would have something I need to be doing. I'd be editing photos on the couch because So it is. Yeah. So thank you so much. And, your handle at mangenmagic.
Yeah. man.gen.magic.
And I'll link all of that in the show notes. What is the best way for people to contact you on Instagram?
Yeah, you know what? Instagram is the best. If you don't want to use Instagram, you can email me, mangenmagic@gmail.com. But Instagram is like my office. So I'm always there.
You are.
Doors always open.
It's so fun. And then your website.
It's tarahbelle.com. So,
Yeah, everything will
find
be
me there
linked in the
too.
show notes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, thank you
perfect.
so much.
Thank you so
Michaela.
much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your energy you bring to the wisdom, because that's the most fun part. So thank you so much. And yeah, I will be talking to you soon.
Yeah, same. And yeah, I hope everyone enjoys.
I know I'm a little biased, but was that a great episode or what? I hope you enjoyed it as much as Willard and I did. It was such a pleasure to record it. And as I said in the intro, human design has helped me in so many ways. I couldn't not bring it to you today. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love if you screenshotted your phone and uploaded that to Instagram and tagged Tara at MangenMagic and myself at Michaela Pollock. Tell us what you loved. And if you don't want to upload it to your story, send us a DM. We are generators. We are here to respond. So send us your questions. Would you like to see a part 2? And if you do want to see a part 2, what do you want us to cover? Because we would love to respond and bring more of that to you. If you have not already, please subscribe to the show. And yeah, just thank you so much for being here. Willard and I are so grateful for you and this Western hippie community. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.